Alrighty, so it's time to do the first MLS Emotion Index of the new season, and it's hard to believe that we are now already a month into the new season, even though it is March now, and usually during this time we will be only like a couple of weeks into the new season, but because of the early start this year to accompany for the World Cup that's going to be happening in November, that's why it's hard to believe that, we're already a month into the season, and I think it's a perfect time to kind of do an early emotion index. Talk about how each team is in the start of the season. Are their fans going to be happy with the start of the season, which is fans base that's going to be belong here? It's been kind of an amazing start to the season. Or they're going to be belong here where it's been a good start to this season, but could be better. And then here is the mediocre range where, it's been okay. I mean, it could be better and it could be worse. Or you're going to be in this tier where it's been kind of a slow start to the season, or a slow start to the season due to other competition. In fact, you know what? Now that I mention it, I'm just going to pretty much put every single teams in CCL. Well, every single team that made it to the quarterfinal of CCL into this category. So, Seattle, NYCFC, New England. Oh god, there was one more team. Montreal, yes. There we go. So, Montreal, all four of these teams that made it to the quarterfinal. And notice I left the Rapids out of it because, the Rapids, they did suffer that embarrassed first round defeat against Comunicaciones, which I'll talk about a little later. That maybe that was a blessing in disguise with the way that they definitely have exceeded in the start of the season. But certainly for these four CCL team, I mean, they have definitely got off to a slow start to the season, but it's expected. I mean, we talked about before, whenever MLS team go into CCL, and when they do prioritize that competition rather than MLS, the league for them is going to suffer, and we've definitely seen it in full force once again. But there's no doubt that I think out of these teams, they're going to be better as CCL is over and as the season goes along. But like I said, right now they're just near the bottom of the table, and that I don't think all of these fan base should be panicking that much about their resort. Although I will say that, except if you're Montreal fans, that it's been like, I know all four of these teams has been off to a bad start, but Montreal specifically, they are just off to just a very terrible little start. And the games that they have lost, boy, it has been probably the most brutal way that they have lost some of those games compared to their other free CCL companion, or the other free MLS team that goes to CCL companion this season. But let us actually begin now. We'll start alphabetical order, so we go with Atlanta United. And for Atlanta, I would say they're here. I mean, for Atlanta, it could be better, it could be worse, but it's also been a good start for this team. I mean, they got off to a great start by winning against Sporting KC, but then things kind of didn't go so well, and then they of course got the result against Charlotte FC in the very last minute. But also, oh god, I'm kind of having a brain fart moment of the result that they had in the last game. I think they draw in the last game, which was kind of disappointment. But yeah, it's been kind of a meh start for Atlanta United, and for a team that has had expectation. I know there's been even some whisper from the Atlanta fan base that they already started to turn on Gonzalo Pineda, and I get that this is how Atlanta fans are going to do because they expect so much from their team. But again, it's still early in the season, and I think the position that Atlanta is in is pretty good right now, and I think that they'll continue to exceed as the season goes along. But now we got Charlotte FC, the new boys of MLS, and for Charlotte, I mean, it has to be over here. I mean, Charlotte fan has to be absolutely excited about their team, especially in their last two games, getting back-to-back wins. And consider how this team was a couple of months ago, and how we talked about the whole screw kind of meme that their head coach Miguel Angel Ramirez talked about. Well, it turns out these last two games, he's basically just kind of fooling everybody, and that, I mean, this team looked like a team that belongs in the league and doesn't look like an expansion team, at least in the last two games. Now, granted, the last two games that they play against a New England team that, are fresh off a disappointing loss against Pumas, and that they probably are kind of still shell-shocked about that result. And then they play against FC Cincinnati, which, I know Cincinnati got back-to-back wins, but you knew that team was going to come back down to earth. And also, not to mention, the last two games that they play was at home. So, yeah, there you can basically use that as a factor. But still, I don't think any Charlotte fans would care about the easy games that they had in the last 2-1. I mean, for an expansion team, if you can get wins, that is definitely a bonus. But especially to this Charlotte team of how it seems like this team was going to be another FC Cincinnati kind of type of team. So far that doesn't seem like it could be the case, though I will say that, FC Cincinnati did get off to a good start in that 2019 season, and then, of course, everything fell apart after the good start. So it's still wait and tell whether or not if Charlotte can continue this good run that they had in the last 2 games. And even in some of the losses that they suffered in the first 2 games, I mean, the first game, they lost to DC 3-0, but that game was very deceiving, consider they were so unlucky with two deflection goal and a controversial penalty that was given against them. And then in that game against Atlanta, where they came so close of getting their first ever point, they came just from a deflection goal away from getting their first ever point in club history. So in some ways, Charlotte has had fair share of bad luck throughout their start of their expansion season. But like I said, they definitely got off to a great start to the season, and we'll see whether or not if that's going to continue. And mind you, one also key factor that or key stats that I want to mention about Charlotte, they've already won more games in their first 4 games in existence than Austin, Miami, and Nashville SC has done in their first 4 games. So yeah, it just tells you that maybe this team is not going to be as bad as what we first thought it was going to be a case. But now moving on, speaking of FC Cincinnati, I'm just going to put Cincinnati right here. I mean, I think Cincinnati fans must be happy with the position that they're in. I mean, especially after the first 2 games, it was just an absolute disaster, and they looked like they were in for another wooden spoon type of year. But they were able to pick themselves up, getting back to back wins. And granted, yes, they did suffer that loss against Charlotte FC and kind of came back down to earth. But this is expected. I mean, this team, I'm pretty sure this fan base, they would salivate any time when this team get victory, because it doesn't come very often. And right now, the job that Pat Noonan has done to this team, he's doing a good job with this team. And that I just think with the way that the start of the season that Cincinnati has, doesn't seem like this team is going to win the wooden spoon again. And especially, I think one of the biggest impact for the Cincinnati team in the early season has been Brandon Vasquez and Alec Khan. I mean, I know Alec Khan had that nightmare of a debut for Cincinnati, but there's a reason why we've seen before where even when players have nightmare debut with their team, it doesn't mean that the player is going to be bad for the team. And we've seen so far Alec Khan has been really becoming almost the MVP of this team, alongside with Brandon Vasquez, who probably could have scored more goals if he was a little bit better in terms of finishing. But when he does score goals, yeah, he's definitely the guy that has really provide a spark to this team. But there's no doubt that Cincinnati fans are definitely happy with the start of the season, and maybe with the way that they've been playing, this is not going to be another wooden spoon year for them. But now moving on to Chicago, and speaking of happy fans, I mean, Chicago fans must be absolutely excited about their team with the way that they've been playing in the first 4 games, and with the way that this is kind of a team that I think is maybe one of the biggest surprise of the season. I mean, I know Chicago, they definitely signed some big names this offseason, getting Shabilko and getting Shaqiri. And we know that Israel Henriksen is definitely an up-and-coming head coach, and a guy that I think he's going to be a top 5 head coach in this league. But I did not expect the fact that this team would get going so quickly off the ground. I mean, usually when a team that basically blow up their entire core last season and then pretty much bring in some new pieces, it's going to take time for that to gel. And I would say that it is still kind of a working progress for this Fire team, but with the way that it's still a working progress, and the fact that they've already got I think 8 points so far to the beginning of the season through the first 5 games. I wonder when this team does start to finally fire on all cylinder and start to gel, and how good this team would be. So yeah, I think there's got to be a lot of excitement in terms of the Fire fan base, and rightfully so. I mean, this fan base has suffered so long with the failures that this team has been in these past decade, and this really is one of the best Fire team that we've seen in this past decade. They probably right up there in terms of the 2017 team that finished 3rd in the Eastern Conference. But now moving on to the Colorado Rapids, and yeah, for the Rapids, I think they're going to be here. So I think for Rapids fan, I mean, despite the fact that I forgot to mention that I've also have a special category here where this special category is that we hate our front office or our owner, and this basically is a category for teams that just simply hate their front office. They don't even care about the bad start that they had, and also not to mention I don't have a panic kind of board because we're only 5 games into the new season. I could have easily put Colorado in that spot because Rapids fans do not like their front office, especially with the way that Kroenke is once again being cheap with this team, and that if this team can be able to allow to spend, who knows how this team would be. This team could easily be an easy contender for MLS Cup with the way that this team is built. But despite the restriction that they have in terms of the spending, and them seems like they're not allowed to have a DP in their team, Rapids have picked up where they left off last season. It definitely didn't look like it in the beginning of the season when they suffered that 3-0 drumming to LAFC, but it seems like in these last couple of games they have started to figure things out and started to look like the Rapids team that is definitely proving people that last year was not a fluke whatsoever. And right now, it seems like that is the case with the way that they have really bounced back after that disastrous start of their campaign, getting knocked out embarrassingly in the first round of CCL and then losing 3-0 to LAFC on the road. But now we got Columbus, and for the Crew, I think they're going to be very happy, and especially the way that I'm pretty sure they're very happy not only with the good start that they had this season, but also their golden goose, Lucas Zarian, who of course won Player of the Month this month, which was well deserved it. He's only going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, after that scary incident where he had to be stretched off in that game against the Red Bulls, it looked like it was going to be a long-term injury. But thankfully, that is not the case. And yeah, I mean, for the Crew, this was kind of expected with the way that I know last season it was kind of a disastrous season with them kind of having a combination of MLS Cup hangover and also just numerous injuries that they had to deal with. And also, it seems like if you know the Caleb Porter trend, he always tends to do badly once a team wins MLS Cup. But the very next year, the team is going to immediately picked up and able to make it to the playoffs. And if we go by the Caleb Porter kind of theorem, it's not a big surprise that Columbus have got off to a good start to the season and are near the top of the Eastern Conference right now. But now we got DC United, and for DC, I mean, they're going to be right here. I mean, there was so much promise in the beginning of the season for DC fans, especially after 2 games where, while they did definitely kind of got some ugly resources and kind of got some luck that goes on their side. I mean, I'm talking about that game against Charlotte where, again, they literally scored 2 out of the 3 goals with off of deflection. And then against FC Cincinnati, they, of course, scored a late penalty kick goal to continue the misery of Cincinnati fans. But, yeah, these last 2 games, I think if I would have made a video talk about all the teams that have won their first 2 games and who are the contender and pretender after the first 2 games, a lot of people would say DC United, and rightfully so. I mean, they have had a lot of luck that has gone their way, but what happened when that luck does not go their way? That's what we're getting in these last 2 games. I mean, it has not been a good last 2 games for this DC team, losing to Chicago at home and then going on the road against TFC and losing that one despite we're up 1-0 in that game. And I think this also kind of shows you that this DC team, it's not like that first 2 games, while they kind of had some luck involvement, when the luck is not with them, then yeah, this is kind of just going to be a very, very mediocre team. And it's a shame because I was hoping that, with her and Lasada, this team would definitely upgrade heading into this season. And they definitely have tried to sign some key pieces, including going to get their DP4 and Taxi Tass into their team. But, these first couple of games, it's definitely not been a good start for this team, but it could have been a lot worse. I mean, if those luck didn't go in their way, they would have been sitting near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. But now we go to FC Dallas. I mean, Dallas fans has to be happy about their team. I mean, it's been an incredible start for this team, and especially under new coach Nico Estevez. He's really hit the ground up by getting a lot of these player going, and especially I think the other thing that Dallas fans must be very happy besides their team is the fact that they can have the rights to say that, that U.S. men's national team that qualified to Qatar yesterday, yeah, we basically did most of the work there, because you look at this U.S. men's national team, there is a ton of players that came out of that FC Dallas Academy, and it just shows you another example of why that Dallas Academy is considered they're the best in the league. I mean, they just produce some of the best talent, not only in MLS, but also in terms of the national team. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of pride that Dallas fans would say that, yeah, we basically create to that national team and is the reason why they made it to the World Cup. But other than that, in terms of domestic level, again, it's been a good start for this team. I mean, their only loss this season was against New England on the road, but there's no shame of that because anytime when you go on the road to play against the Revs, especially in an early game, it's going to be tough. But with the way that they start this season and some of the signings that they made has really hit the ground running. I mean, Alan Velasco is starting to look like a guy that is worth every single penny that FC Dallas have paid. And not to mention Paul Arriola has also got off to a good start for this Dallas team. Yeah, maybe Dallas is starting to come back in a team that I think they're definitely looking to forget how they missed the playoffs in a very rare kind of occurrence and look to bounce back and make the playoffs this season. But now moving to the Houston Dynamo. I mean, for the Dynamo, if there is a category where I said, we're rebuilding and let's just kind of forget this season, I would have put them there. But I guess you can say that Houston is going to be here where I think their start has been good. I mean, they're definitely not one of the best team in the league, but this is expected from Dynamo fans. Like, this team is clearly on a full rebuild right now, and that the way that they've gone through this season, at least in the first couple of games, it's been going well. I mean, the rebuild has gone through the right track. I mean, compared to the other deep rebuild that we have already seen from teams, I mean, they can basically be proud to say at least our rebuild is doing well, unlike a certain team that I'll talk about how their rebuild is definitely not got off to a great start. So overall, I think Dynamo fans, I know that they would be nice to wish that their team could get off to a good start like they've done in the past, but this is expected from them. I don't expect this team to compete that much, and that they have definitely got off to a decent start for a team that I think is clearly on a rebuild. Though one player that they definitely hope that they can get going is Sebastian Ferreira, which I talked about how he's really struggled in his early career with the Dynamo and in MLS, but I think he's just kind of one of the many foreign player that sometimes foreign player takes a while to get going, especially with them coming into a new country that they don't know and coming into a new team. So I think eventually he's going to get off the stride, but there's no doubt that the Dynamo are hoping that he can get off that stride sooner than later, especially it has not been a good start for him in the beginning of the season. But now moving to Sporting KC. For SKC, there's no doubt that they could have been right here if they would have dropped points in the last game that they had. And again, I forgot. Oh, RSL. Yeah, RSL was the team that they won. I mean, that was a win. That is literally what the doctor ordered for the Sporting KC team, because I'm pretty sure their fans are freaking out with the way that besides that 1-0 win against the Dynamo, they have not looked like a team that could be a team that could even make the playoffs this season. And even after that 1-0 result against RSL, I think there's still a lot of question too. I mean, not only the defense is still terrible with this team, but now going for on the attack, I mean, they haven't really got a lot of impact from both Johnny Russell or Daniel Sharwi. Though that being said, both of those players has been kind of out a lot in these first couple of games, and it's no surprise that when those players are out and that they basically have no attacking threat whatsoever, they have really struggled on the attack. But again, that win that they had against RSL, that was huge in a way that it might have given Sporting KC fans a little bit of false hope that things, of course, could be is starting to get back on track. But like I said, they desperately need both Johnny Russell and Daniel Sharwi to stay healthy, and also getting back Gotti King the two, because there's no doubt that without any of those three players in that attack, this SKC team cannot not score goals. I mean, it's simple as that. But now moving on to the LA Galaxy, and for the Galaxy, I mean, they're gonna be in that same category as where DC is, where the first two games it looked like things were doing well, and unlike DC, I will say that at least the Galaxy, they didn't really rely on a lot of luck, because in the first two games I thought they played well in both of those games. But yeah, these last two games has been a huge reality check the fact that they're maybe not ready to really be a team that is going to be a contender for the well, they're not going to be a contender for some of those top spot in the Western Conference. And so far in the beginning of the season, I know it's easy to point out that the defense is still suck on this team, but I think the other big point to point out about this team is the attack. I mean, the attack right now besides the first couple of games, it has really stalled out, and especially it's been also kind of frustrating to see this attack in terms of so many times when they miss those big opportunity. And that, obviously I talked about how Chicharito is kind of like the boom and bust of this team. If he's performing well, this Galaxy is going to do. If he's not performing well, this team is not going to do on the attack. And what a surprise to see that Chicharito. I mean, I know he had, I think he already had a goal so far in the beginning of the season, but with the way that he hasn't really scored on a regular basis, it's no doubt that this Galaxy team has really struggled on the attack, because there's really nobody else on that attack for the Galaxy that can score goals. So yeah, I mean, I think these last two games is a huge reality check that there may be some Galaxy fans are starting to run out of patience in terms of seeing Chicharito as the only guy that can score on the attack, and not to mention a lot of Galaxy fans are running out of patience of Kevin Cabral on how much of a disastrous start that he has this season, after it feels like maybe he turned a corner in the preseason with him doing very well in the preseason. And this also is kind of another example of why in the preseason those results doesn't really always indicate what happens in the regular season. But now moving on to their intercity rival LAFC. I mean, I think LAFC fans has to be happy. I mean, they're at the top of the Western Conference. They're back where they belong, and certainly the media are happy that is the case, because now they can rightfully say that they are the best team in the league, with them being at the top of the Western Conference. But yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing start for this team, and a lot of that has to do with Carlos Vela doing Carlos Vela thing. And by the way, what's interesting about Vela is that, I know this season he said that this could be his last season, but what I didn't know is that his contract actually runs out in the middle of the season, and this is going to be very interesting to see what LAFC is going to do, because, I know Vela have openly said that he wants to leave this team after the end of the season, but, the contract that he's under is not really going to allow him to do so, and unless if LAFC maybe has like an option in his contract where he can like stay at least till the end of the year, we could see Vela potentially leave this team in the middle of the season. And if that's the case, that is a devastating blow to this LAFC attack that has really heavily relied on the good performance that he had in the beginning of the season. But besides that, I thought the other thing that I've been very impressed with LAFC is the defense. I mean, the defense have definitely been much better for this upcoming season. I mean, it also helps the fact that they, of course, have Maxime Crepeau in goal, and that, I think he's definitely done well in the beginning of the season, but also not to mention their back line looking much more stable. And there's also this guy called Mamadou Fall that has really started to emerge as one of the biggest talent and one of the biggest young talent in MLS, because not only he's a very good defender, but he also is a guy that is well loved in the LAFC fan base, and also a guy that can score crucial goal in big moment too. So yeah, again, for LAFC, things have definitely got off well to start the season, but let's see if that can continue, and especially can they of course resolve the whole Vela situation and maybe sign him to an extension at least to the end of the season, so that he doesn't walk out of this team in the middle of the year. But now moving on to Inter Miami, and this is the first team I'm going to put here in this special category where we hate our front office and or our owner. And specifically, I would say that, they hate some part of their front office. I mean, I know Inter Miami fans won't hate what Chris Henderson has done to this team, but there's no doubt that there are some other front office members, and especially the owner, David Beckham, that, yeah, I think they're starting to hate on that. I mean, I will say that, for this season, we knew this season was going to be rough for this Inter Miami team. Like, they basically did the same thing that the Chicago Fire did, although I would say that Inter Miami did it even more extreme, because they literally just drop a nuke on their team and basically start from scratch, and hence that's why I said that this team kind of looks like an expansion team heading into the season. It's almost like expansion 2.0 for this Inter Miami team. But even then, I mean, you look at how things have gone, and especially I've said it before. Phil Neville is clearly not the guy to lead the rebuild of this team, and I've also said that he is also a guy that has a lot of ego whenever he answers question from the media. And right now, it's no surprise that he's using that ego once again to throw players under the bus, especially the likes of Gonzalo Higuain. And listen, I'm trying not to defend in the case of Gonzalo Higuain. I think he also maybe get some criticism with the way that he's been playing, especially his body language, to his teammate and the way that he's been playing in the beginning of the season. But for a head coach to simply just throw a player under the bus like that, yeah, that most time or not, you're going to lose the credibility from that locker room. And I just think that it is pretty clear that Phil Neville has already lost this locker room, and that I won't be surprised that he is going to be fired soon. Though I've said that last season, and guess what happened? It did not happen, and there's a reason why it's probably not going to happen sooner or later, because of the way that David Beckham, he's going to try to make every case to keep his right hand man, and this is also where maybe there are some people that start to hate on Beckham too. I mean, they love him with the way that he's kind of like a celebrity in their front office, but how many times we've seen in MLS or even in other sports where we have some high rank executive that are legend when they are in the playing career, but when it comes to like the executive level, it's a complete different animal, and how they always tends to struggle on that. And we're starting to see with Beckham, as great as a player as he is, maybe the executive level is not his strong point, and it's just been an absolute disastrous start for this Inter Miami team. And even if they are on a rebuild, this is definitely a rebuild that is going to take even longer than they first thought, with the way that they just haven't really made a lot of progress in terms of feeling how this team is going to be. And especially, I also think that the fan base are angry with the way that I think some might say that they acknowledge the rebuild, but there's no doubt that some are definitely they don't want to see this team rebuild. Consider all the promise that they had in coming into the league, and how there's going to be hyped that they are going to be one of the best team in the league, and they're going to sign all these big name player. And right now, they did sign a couple of big name player in the inaugural season, but now it just seems like they're just kind of tearing things down. And it's also no wonder why, when you also see a lot of Inter Miami home games, that stadium is half empty most of the time. And I can agree on that, because I went to one of their games in October, and yeah, that stadium was pretty much half empty. And albeit, yes, it was a Wednesday game, and I know Wednesday games are a tough draw, but it just feels like there wasn't really a lot of enthusiasm in that crowd, knowing how things have gone for this team ever since they come into the league. But now moving to Minnesota, my team. I mean, for the Loons, I'm going to say they're here, and I know this might be me just being pessimistic again with my team by putting it here, even though they probably should belong right here, where it's definitely been an amazing start to the season. But me kind of putting a pessimistic kind of viewpoint is the fact that, we'll see what happens when they do face against good team. And I know some will say, well, they've already faced some good team. I mean, they already got a point on the road and then getting a win against the Red Bulls. But I will counter by saying that was against a Union team that, yeah, in the first game of the season, it's always unpredictable how a result is going to go. And then in that game against the Red Bulls, if it wasn't for Dane Sinclair, I mean, this team would have easily lost that game on the road. So in some way, I feel like there is definitely some cautious pessimism I take with this team with the start that they had. No, now there's no doubt that I will say that it's been definitely a great start for this team, and it's so refreshing that they have definitely got so many more points than they did compared to the first 4 games of last season when they start 0-4. And it's always great to see a team that get off to a good start, but we'll see when they do play against even some more good team. And especially with the way that I feel like this Loons team, it still frustrates me in a way where they still haven't solved the long issue that they've been having in the last couple of years, which is they just don't have a reliable number 9, and they just don't have anybody on this team that can score goals regularly. In fact, out of all these teams that are still unbeaten, they're basically the lowest goal scoring team. And I don't know how much longer is that like your defense is going to be just as good until that the lack of goal scoring production is going to catch up to this team, and especially with the way that their backline, while it's definitely got off to a great start, we'll see as the season goes along, because that backline is also aging badly. And if there's one thing that I will say about backline that is old, they can wear out as the season goes along. So I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case again, because last season I think it was a great example where that backline really wear down as the season goes along. But now moving on to we got well, I was gonna say Montreal, but I already put them there. So let's go with Nashville. And for Nashville, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure for Nashville fans, after that first game of the season when they were able to go to Seattle and win 1-0 in that one, and there was a lot of excitement about this team of how, yeah, this is gonna be a team that's gonna dominate the West. And they even pounded just to the rest of the Western Conference, said, watch out, we're going to be a real threat coming into this season. Yeah, it has not been that case for these next couple of games. Now, granted, yes, these last couple of games, they have been all on the road, and that we knew that this Nashville team was probably going to get off to a rough start with them playing so many road games. But, the issue that they've been having this for these first couple of games shouldn't surprise anybody. They're still having issue in terms of goal scoring, and especially with Hani Mukhtar. I wouldn't say he hasn't got all has a terrible start to the season, because you can see that he definitely made some impact in some of the games, even when he's not in the goal scoring department. But for a team that really relies on him in terms of the goal scoring department, and with him, like, what, I don't even think he has already scored a goal this season. Yeah, that's the issue that I think this Nashville team has had. And not to mention, there's also the issue with the way that, that unstoppable backline that I talked about. There's been a couple of times that it has been breached, and it was it's shown in full example in that game against FC Dallas, where that was probably one of the worst defensive this play that I have, especially near the end of the game, that Nashville has ever done. But it's been definitely a rough start for this team, but there's no doubt that they hope to survive this long road trip, and that it's not going to get any easier for this team with the way that with them still in the midst of this road trip. We'll see how they're going to do as they play their first home game, and I expect that this team is going to bounce back, because anytime when a team go through a long road trip to start the season, it's going to get tough. But there's no doubt that once they finally start playing at home, they should definitely do better. I mean, I'm assuming that is going to be the case with this Nashville team. But now moving on to the New York Red Bulls. I mean, I think for the Red Bulls fans are pretty happy with the start of the season. I mean, the only loss that they had was because Dane Sinclair basically stand on the top of it, stand on his heads, and that, I know Red Bulls fan will also be a little disappointed that they dropped points late in that game against Columbus. But overall, for a team that I thought they were going to fail off this season, it hasn't been the case. I mean, they have looked like a team that is kind of what I expected. I mean, a team that I don't think is going to be a world beater in the Eastern Conference, but is going to be good enough to make it to the playoffs. And if they can keep playing like this, they will definitely be a team that will extend their playoff streak of, I think, now 13 consecutive season of them making the playoffs. But now moving to Orlando City. Yeah, I think Orlando fans are happy. I mean, there was some panic for Orlando City fans, especially with the first three games that they had, where they have definitely not look good. But I think that they're happy with the way that they finally break the curse of them not able to win on the road against a West Coast team and a Pacific Standard Time team by getting a 1-0 win against the Galaxy. And they almost did it again against the Portland Timbers, only to give a goal when they're a man up. I mean, how many times I've said that happened before this season. But overall, it's been a good start to the season. And I will also say that for Orlando, just like what I said about Minnesota, I can see why some Orlando City fans might not be happy with the start of the season, with the way that goal scoring is still a big issue with this team. I mean, despite the effort that they have done in terms of erect that, it hasn't really kind of come to fruition, and especially with some of their new signing like Facundo Torres and that guy that I forgot what was his first name, but I think his last name is Kerr. Yeah, they have not got off to a good start to the season, and definitely haven't really lived up to the price tag that they basically paid them to be fixing the big goal scoring that problem that they had last year. But we'll see if that can maybe change as the season goes along. Especially, it feels like on the road, whenever this team play, Oscar Pereira tends to be very defensive with this team. Like they tends to always just kind of bunker and trying to maybe get like a goal and sneak out of that. And while that might be a good strategy on the road, because that's the way you can of course pick up points, and I think that's also a very similar strategy of what Gary Smith does with this Nashville team. But it also kind of puts the pressure on the fact that if you give up a goal to the opposition, yeah, that could be a bit of a problem. In that this is not a team that, especially on the road, when they go down on the road, is not a team that can overcome that adversity and come back to get a result. But now moving on to the Philadelphia Union. I mean, for the Union, they're going to be the highest because, again, everything has gone to plan for this Union team. Like, we knew that coming into the season, this is going to be a supporter shield kind of team, and they have definitely shown the case in these first couple of games. Now, granted, some of the resort that they've been playing hasn't been the most prettiest, but that's what Jim Curtin loves to do. I mean, the way that they play, it's not about being flashy, and it's not about just scoring as many goals as possible. They're a team that kind of likes to grind out resort. And in some way kind of reminds me a little bit of that New England team last season winning the Supporters Shield, where as great as that New England team is and has a lot of star player, you look at some of the resort that they had last season, and some of those resources they kind of had to like grind out or even have to face heavy adversity and come back to get a win on the road. And we've already seen that happen with this Union team too, and an example of that is that game against Montreal, down 1-0, facing adversity, score 2 quick goals, and even down to 10 men for the remaining of the game, and that they were able to fight away to get all 3 points in that, and that's just what picks apart of what a supporter shield team can do. So yeah, there's no doubt that Union fans are absolutely ecstatic with the way that this team has got off to what they expected for this upcoming season, which is going to be a team that is going to consider to be the best team in the league. But now we got the Portland Timbers, and for the Timbers, yep, they're going to be right here, where, yeah, I mean, you can pretty much tell why the Timbers belongs in that spot, because there is still that ongoing protest about how Timbers fans are hating on their front office and their owners in terms of the situation that they're dealing with Andy Polo, and that I feel like that seems like it's been more of a talking point rather than the slow start that this team has. And whenever that happens, yeah, that's not a good sign for a team. And like I said, I hope eventually things will get it right. And I think the Timbers did release another statement in regards to that situation to hopefully maybe get the fans back on their side. But I know there is a reason why the fans are still not happy with the way that, I think the fans know that who are the two culprits of this team, and that unless of those two culprits of this front office does not get removed, there's going to be still that ongoing issue of the field issue that this team has to face. But in terms of the on the field product, which hasn't really been talked a lot about because of the scandal that's going off the field, yeah, it's been a slow start for this Timbers team, and I don't know if part of that has to do with the off-the-field situation. I mean, I've seen before where teams, even when they deal off-the-field situation, it doesn't really affect their on-field production. And again, I don't know if that is going to be the case, but it's not been a great start for the Timbers in the beginning of the season, and they're probably going to have to do something similar that they did last season, where they also got off to a slow start, but then they find their stride in the second half of the season, and let's see if that's going to be the case once again. But now moving to RSL. Yeah, RSL is going to be right here. I mean, probably the most surprising team this season has to be Real Salt Lake. And even with that loss that they had against Sporting KC, which I think that loss was maybe like a reality check. The fact that, yeah, I mean, as good as the start has been, that it was bound to happen that they're going to eventually lose their first game. Though I will say that was also a game where I don't think RSL fans are going to be that disappointed with that loss, because they were really toe-to-toe with Sporting KC, and unfortunately it was just kind of in the wrong end of a game where they could have easily got all 3 points in that one. But there's no doubt that this RSL team has been the most surprising team this season, because when you look at the squad, nobody expected that this team would be a World beater and be a top tier contender in the Western Conference, and yet that seems like it is going to be the case. Now, I will also say this: we have seen this before with teams that get off to a hot start when we didn't expect it, and eventually they kind of cool off a little bit, and hence let's just hope that maybe that Sporting KC result is not a sign that this team is going to start to cool off a little bit. But right now, I think RSL fans, they shouldn't be complaining at all about how the start of the season. It's been a very unexpected, amazing start of the season, and that it seems like that great playoff run that they had last season is starting to carry into this season too, and that does not happen very often. I mean, I know for a fact that whenever a team go on a Cinderella run, it's a great story, but I don't know if that's always going to carry into the new season. But that just seems like it's the case, at least for RSL this year. But now moving on to the San Jose Earthquakes. Yep, they're going to be the third team, and I think they're also the third and final team that belongs in this category, where we hate our front office and our owner. And in specific case, says I would say that just like Inter Miami, I think the part that we hate our front office isn't our main GM. I mean, I don't think Quakes fans really hate Chris Leach, especially some of the moves that he made. But what Quakes fan really hates is the fact that Almeida is still their head coach, even though Almeida has multiple times talked about how he doesn't want to be there, and the front office are basically doing nothing to get rid of him. Though again, I think a big part of it is because they're not willing to pay that clause where if they do fire Almeida, they're going to have to pay a huge sum of money to do so. But this also means that there is another scapegoat in terms of this team, and that, of course, is the owner of this team, in John Fisher. I mean, this if you haven't followed this team closely, you would not know that there's been almost like a cold war that is brewing between the fan base and also the owner for what? I mean, at least like 10 years now, and it feels like there's been times that it has started to kind of clash between how the fans are really unhappy with the ownership of this group. But I think this season is probably where it's at its peak, where there's definitely these people that demand John Fisher to leave this team, and unfortunately I just don't see that could potentially happen, because as much just pressure that this team has put on their own owner, I don't think John Fisher really cares. He's just going to keep this team as another asset, and that's kind of the frustrating part of being a Quakes fan. Like, we can protest all we want, but the owners is not going to sell the team. And the only way that I really think John Fisher could potentially be removed as the owner is he'll do a Dale Hansen kind of moment, and even that I don't think that's going to be happen, because one of the secret way why John Fisher has really not been criticized from the media is the fact that he kind of also keep out of the spotlight a lot. He's kind of a very quiet owner where he doesn't want to be in the spotlight and almost keep a very low profile kind of status, so that he doesn't get ridiculed from the front office. So there's not going to be a case where we're going to see another Dale Hansen incident, unless if that of course is the case, which if that of course is the case, I mean, I hate to have to celebrate in terms of that messy situation that the Quakes could find themselves in, just like what RSL did. But I'm pretty sure some Quakes fans, including myself, will have a smirk on their face knowing that, it's finally over. We can finally say that the league is going to step in to try to remove John Fisher as the owner of this team, because until then, that's not going to happen. Like, the league will have no obligation in terms of removing John Fisher, no matter how much he's being the cheapest owner right now in MLS, and refuse to spend or even give any support to this team that could be a real contender if there is, of course, backing. But now moving or actually I was gonna say the Seattle Sounders, but I already put them on. But let's go to Toronto FC, and for TFC, I think TFC fans are starting to be a little bit happier about their team. I mean, it was a disastrous start of the season for them, losing their first two games, and already some people are hating on Bob Brantley and the way that it doesn't seem like he's the guy that will guide them to the promised land. But they have definitely ride the ship in the last two games. Although, again, with a team that has high expectation and a team that have already made a lot of signing this season, which, one of the signings that I've also been very impressed has to be Jimenez, of how he's really live up to the price tag with him scoring goals after goals every single game. But, I still think that this TFC team, and especially one of the biggest weakness I think this team will need to eventually address, and it also kind of is weird, the fact that they also got rid of one of their defender in Kamar Lawrence, even though they already are very short in the fullback depth to Minnesota. I mean, thanks TFC in terms of getting him for such a cheap price, but I think there's also you got to also look at the defense and how I just feel like with this team, as much as even if they do add those good attacking talent either in the summer transfer window or when Lorenzo Insigne does come to this team in July, that defense is probably going to be what's holding back this team to be an MLS Cup contender, or even maybe be a playoff contender. Because when you look at how that defense has been playing in the first couple of games, there's nothing tells me that that defense has improved at all from last season. And last season, that defense was bad. Like, that defense was bad enough where it was almost at a level of FC Cincinnati bad, with them giving up 66 goals and them having the second worst defensive record in the league. But now moving to the last team to talk about, and that is the Vancouver Whitecaps. Yeah, I mean, for the Whitecaps, it's definitely not been a great start. And you also wonder, when is this Vanni Sartini honeymoon period is going to over? Because, I know whenever right now a lot of Whitecaps fans are not really daring to say that Sartini is maybe not the right man for this. And maybe from what we saw last season when he had that energy and really guiding this team to the playoffs was just kind of a mirage and just an example of what happened when a team gets into a good form. But there's also is another. I also said that what happened when he does face some adversity, or if they go through a bad run. And again, I feel like it's still time will tell, because if Sartini can start to turn things around for this team, maybe that honeymoon period is going to be over. But I just feel like as long as this team continue to lose game, you can say that honeymoon period could be over. Because if about Whitecaps fan, they definitely expect a lot for their team. And even though I know they don't want to criticize Sartini yet because of the amazing things that he has done, he only has that many time before I can see that the fan base can turn on him. And especially this season, they were supposed to carry the good success that they had last season, and there was talk that the deep rebuild that they've been going through is finally over, and it seems like now they're back to the level where they were in the first 2 years of this deep rebuild and under Mark Dos Santos, which is not winning games and sitting at the bottom of the Western Conference. But either way, that is pretty much it for the emotion index or the first emotion index of this season. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And as always, if I rank some of these teams a little bit too high in the emotion index or a little bit too low, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys see the like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.